Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode on systems for success. I talk a lot about the concepts that help us be successful because number one, all of us want to be successful, but I know many of us struggle with what that looks like. How do I achieve the goals that I want? A lot of people don't accomplish the things that they want, and they don't always know why. Some people don't achieve the things that they want to, and they know why. They're not willing to sacrifice, but that's an entirely different podcast episode. So I wanted to drill down today on the systems for success. This really came to me. I was running in a group run a few weeks ago, and one of my training runs, but this was a little bit slower paced run with the group. And so we naturally have great conversations as we're running, anytime there's a group of us. And someone was talking about how do you get motivated to train? We were specifically talking about marathon training, but just in general, how do you get motivated to get out and go run? And it's not always fun. And sometimes it's cold and sometimes it's raining. And when I really stopped to think about it, it's not about getting motivated for running or anything else. Anytime we want to be successful in an endeavor, it's not about finding a magic pot of motivation laying around and enjoying it. It's about setting yourself up for success with a system that's going to help you achieve that. This concept is similar maybe, or it just reminds me of in the 4 Disciplines of Execution, the book. The authors talked about one of the important disciplines of execution, or, for our purposes today, goal achieving, is working on the appropriate lead measures. And if you haven't understand that concept, or haven't heard that concept, or maybe haven't read the book, the authors talked about lag measures and lead measures and the difference between those. So using the example of weight, for example, if you step on the scale and the number on the scale is not what you want it to be, it's too late to do anything about it in that moment. It just is what it is. All the scale is doing is reporting back what the number is. It's too late to make a change. That's a lag measure. It's too late to do anything about your weight. If your goal is to lose weight, when you step on the scale, you've either been successful or you haven't, but you're not changing the outcome in that moment. Versus acting on the lead measures. And the authors talked about the lead measures are the things that you can do to influence the lag measures. So what can you do to influence the number that the scale is going to report back? Well, you could exercise, or well, you could eat, a little less ice cream and a few more salads, whatever that is. The thing is that it's difficult because it's easy to step on the scale, right? You don't really have to do anything about it. It just is what it is. But you didn't have to work hard. There's no discipline involved in stepping on the scale. The discipline comes in identifying and acting on the appropriate lead measures. When I talk about systems for success, that's really what we come down to. It's not about the motivation of the moment that's going to help you be successful. It's acting on the things that will get you there, even when you're not going to feel motivated, because you're not going to feel motivated. But relative to whatever goal it is, it's important to create a system to be successful. Now, systems are very useful things. We use them all the time. We haven't even thought about it mostly. You probably have one specific place in your house that you usually put your car keys. For example, this is a system. And probably 99.9 times when you come home, you put your car keys in this one specific place. And the next time you go to drive somewhere, your car keys are always where you expect them to be. You don't have to worry about it. That's a system that you've created so that you don't have to worry about where are my car keys. You don't have to go look for your car keys. You just always put them right there in that one specific place. Except there's that one time out of 100 where, for whatever reason, you dropped them in a different pocket of your purse, or you put them in somewhere else. You dropped them in a drawer with the groceries. Who knows? Maybe there's just that one incident out of 100 or 1,000 that your car keys are not where they're supposed to be. I'll share an example of this with you. I once accidentally threw my car keys away like just not realizing it, carrying in groceries and, bags and things like that. And then emptying the trash out of my car and just accidentally crumbled my car keys up in one of those bags, the grocery store bags, and dropped it in the little wastebasket by the door. Totally inadvertently, did not even realize I was doing that, right? Not paying attention in the moment. But pretty quick, when I go to look for my car keys, I realize they're not where I thought they were. Now, that's an extreme example. Hopefully you've never accidentally thrown your car keys away, but unfortunately, it was just one of those little office trash cans. It wasn't like the big trash can in the kitchen with all the yucky stuff. But it's an example of one instance where I failed to implement the system. And so the car keys aren't where I need them to be. It's just a little system. I bet you've never really thought about that. You haven't intentionally said, oh, I need to build a system to keep my car keys where they should be. It's really about identifying some systems that have helped us and then identifying how we can leverage systems, because people love concepts like that, systems like that, right? We don't even think about it, but they can help us be more effective. They can also help us be effective. One of the examples for me personally, I've talked a little bit about my marathon journey and training for the Boston Marathon. And absolutely, this is a great example of a system. Marathon training is a great example of a system that helps you successfully run the marathon. And you have to work the system, right? You have to get up for marathon running. It's getting up and training. And there are days when you're tired and you're like, I don't want to, but you have to work the system because the system sets you up for success. Now, it doesn't guarantee it, but it gives you the best possible reasonable outcome expectation. But if you don't work your system, then you cannot expect to be successful, because motivation is not enough to get you through the hard times. Motivation is not enough to help you be successful, because motivation doesn't last. I think it's Zig Ziglar's quote. He said, motivation doesn't last, but neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it every day. And it's so true. Motivation doesn't last. It's going to fade away. That's not going to carry you through when achieving your goal or your dream is going to get tough. And it is going to get tough. It's just going to come down to hard work sometimes. I shared a quote the other day about discipline being the bridge from where you are and where you want to go, right? Discipline is the bridge that you have to cross. We all have here and now, which is where we are, and we all have things that we want to accomplish. And something has got to help us cross that gap. It's the gap between what we know and what we do, right? We all know of things that we should do to be more successful or to increase our chances for success. But we don't always do them. And vice versa. We know things we shouldn't do and we still do them. And so it's not the lack of knowledge that holds us back. It's the implementation. And that's where the system comes in. Now, you could give it a prettier name or you could give it a fancier term, but I really like the concept of a system, because the system is just a process. And I've talked about that before, the process of progress. Because in the moment we're working towards that goal, we're making progress. You can't always see it yet. And that's when we get discouraged. That's when motivation falls away. If we're not seeing results immediately, many times we get frustrated, and so we give up, and we give up on ourselves and our dreams and our goals far too easily. It is so easy to just renegotiate those with ourselves and say, you know what, it's not really worth it. Well, if you're not willing to sacrifice for your goal, that's a whole different podcast, right? Then you need to do some serious soul searching into what your motivations are and why you aren't willing to sacrifice it. And if you aren't, then maybe you need to revisit whether that's really your goal, whether that's really your dream. Maybe it's somebody else's. And it's really coming down to that. And we could talk for all day on that topic and digging into that. But my point here is that when you have that, let's say it's, an example of a system is getting a college degree. If the dream job that you want requires a college degree, well, the system would be planning effectively allotting time for studying to pass the exams that are going to get you those college credits so you can get the degree. So the system there is sitting down and going, when am I going to study and how am I going to make sure that I protect this time to study, right? What system is going to set me up for success relative to this long-term goal? And then implementing the system. Because the system is the behaviors that are going to lead to the results that you want. There again, we're not always going to be 100% with our behaviors. We're not always going to be 100% with the systems. But the more behaviors that we have that we know will lead to success, the more often we implement those, then the easier it is to leverage those opportunities and to achieve that success. So the system really comes down to, it's the behaviors that are going to give us the outcomes that we want. And that's where the thought comes in. That's where the planning comes in. That's where the discipline comes in. Because a lot of times those behaviors, although they might serve us well long-term, they're not always the fun things in the moment. In fact, most of the time, they're not the fun things in the moment. At marathon training, there again, it's just a very relevant example to the season I'm in. And it has been cold this winter. There have been several mornings when it's cold and dark and raining. And that's not the fun in the moment thing that's going to help me be successful, but it is the thing that'll help me be successful to get out and go train, even if it is cold and dark and raining. So realizing that behavior is going to lead to the outcome I want, I've got to just be 100% committed to it. Now, I've said before, there's a difference in being interested in an outcome and committed to achieving that outcome. Definitely. I mean, we're talking worlds apart, 180 degrees. I can be interested in something, but not necessarily committed to working for it. And that's a huge gap. That's a gap that you have to be 100% committed to in order to cross, because it's not going to happen by accident. Nothing worth having happens by accident. I love the analogy of, if you're thinking of whatever it is that you want to achieve, or, whether it's relative to personal growth and maximizing your potential or maximizing your results, becoming the best version of you, whatever that means, it's sort of like building a grand cathedral, and every brick is an action, is a choice, is a behavior. And every big brick that you're laying, every choice that you're making is helping you get closer toward that big, beautiful cathedral. But it happens one brick at a time. Cathedral is built one brick at a time. I love to say potential is realized one choice at a time. Until next time.